Hey everybody, it's Editing Felicia. Real quick, just wanted to jump in here to let you know that Elaine's audio this episode is not great. It's going to happen sometimes. We're a baby podcast and we're trying to figure out the best ways to record together. We don't live near each other. You know, she's in a whole separate state from me. So it's going to just take us a bit to get all the kinks ironed out. But for right now, this episode should be listenable. It's just not going to be as good as every other episode. So just wanted to let you know that we are aware of the audio issues and thank you for sticking through it with us. Hello, everyone, and welcome right over here to Wonka Watch. Picture it. You walk into the store, and me and Elaine, we're your cashiers, and we see you wandering around, and you're a little nervous to look too close at anything lest we approach you. Unfortunately, you see us walking towards you. I take your hand, and I say, "There's something here I think you need to see." I guide you towards the Chelsea boot section and give you a gold shoebox to open. You open it up, peeling the lid off in fear of a silly jape, but when it's all removed, all you see is a little man, Timothée Chalamet, the Chelsea boot of men. I'm your host, Felicia.
And I'm your coworker, Elaine, and we're having a 5% discount off of little top hats for your chihuahuas.
And welcome to Wonka Watch.
We're a podcast that we're two people who thought we didn't care about Willy Wonka until we learned that there's a prequel in the making, and we've just entered a spiral of insanity, and we're counting down to the Wonka rapture in March of 2023. The release of the Wonka prequel.
Last week we talked about the 1971 movie, finish up our discussions of that, and we kind of wanted to take a step away from like the main Wonka canon and look at some ancillary Wonka products. And we decided one of the best things we could do would be to do a little Willy Wonka book report, because it turns out we don't know as much as we think we do. I think it's eternal punishment for not understanding that Slugworth wasn't called Slughorn for about the first 3 weeks of the podcast. I picked up quite a large book about the making of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Pure Imagination by the director Mel Stuart. And Elaine, what did you grab?
Yeah, so as we all know from episode 1, I didn't even know who Roald Dahl is, who is the writer of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is the whole reason this any of the Wonka stuff exists.
Kind of a key piece of information.
A little bit. And so I thought I would also really dive into the scholarly stuff. I was actually a history major in college, so I know all about like primary resources and stuff. So I went into the children's section. I went into nonfiction, and I found this amazing book that's about 90 pages with big font and illustrations called "What is the Story of Willy Wonka?"
And it is one of those books with the celebrities with the big heads on the front of it.
Yes, it's a whole series.
Look like garish little balloons.
And it is funny because it's in the nonfiction section, and we'll have what is the story of George Washington? What is the story of, all these other people? But what is the story of Willy Wonka suggests that he's a real human being?
Yeah, very much it does, which is
which is kind of interesting. And let me tell you, I learned a lot, and
oh my God.
I'm really excited to get to share my knowledge with you, because now I think I'm also a Wonka scholar. I hope to get my Wonka scholar diploma by the end of this.
Oh my God. We'll take you across the little stage, give you a little top hat, because that's what you wear at Wonka graduation.
You get a top hat and a cane, and you start dancing off the stage.
They give you a diploma, and it's edible.
You start eating your diploma, and then you're like, oh, goodness.
Don't hang it on the wall, or the bugs will come.
Oh.
But yeah, my book was super interesting, too. It actually answered a lot of questions we had about the movie and gave me more questions I didn't even know I had. Before we get into the main topic of the episode, it's time to visit Wonka Watch, the place where we learn news about Willy Wonka. I'm going to keep doing intros until one of them sticks. So the first big piece of Wonka news is we have a new Wonka tie-in product coming out in 2022. So the brand International Delights, who does the coffee creamers, has been doing a lot of branded character tie-ins. So for example, right now they have a Buddy the Elf coffee creamer. And in 2022, they're adding the Whipple Scrumptious Fudgy Caramel. So that's what it is. I got this from Foodsided. Wonka.com. And they said, and I quote, "International Delight is adding Whipple Scrumptious Fudgy Caramel in 2022, and it is a reason to take cheer loudly." Which I don't, it's a bizarre way. And there was an interview with Olivia Sanchez, Vice President of Marketing for International Delight, and she said, "We are on a relentless mission to offer delicious creamer flavors that deliver unmatched delight in every drop, brought to life with iconic partnerships. With our new Wonka Whipple Scrumptious Fudgy Caramel Creamers, we're bringing a world of pure imagination to our flavor-obsessed Creamer Nation fans, delivering the magic of Wonka's iconic chocolate factory to the room we all leave in our coffee cup for our favorite creamer."
I love being part of Creamer Nation.
I know. And I'm kind of excited because that means like we get to have a live taste test of the Willy Wonka creamer, which is so bizarre that that's going to be part of this podcast. And the problem is I don't even use flavored creamer. So like it's going to be a lot for me.
The problem is I don't drink coffee. So yeah. I'm just going to be straight up taking shots of this. You have said the name 10 times and I can't. Whipple, bipple, bitch. Fudgies.
It's Whipple Scrumptious Fudgy Caramel. Wonka Whipple.
Whipple Scrumptious.
But when it kicks off in 2022, there's an extra bonus to the arrival. And that is International Delight will be launching a golden ticket search, ladies and gents. And it says, while it might not come with a chocolate factory, prizes will give surprise and delight. So that's something that we're going to be talking about, I guess, in 2022.
Are we going to have to go on a hunt to get this golden ticket for probably like a free box of creamer? Searching boxes of creamers is 30 times worse than a chocolate bar because that's just loose dairy. Like
it really is.
Floating in the air, rotting.
The smell?
The golden ticket's rolled up in the creamer. You have to pull it out in there.
And like the person who gets it like doesn't notice and just drinks it, and then they're like, "What is this? What gold did I eat?"
And they get a colonoscopy, and then the doctors are like,
"There's a golden ticket in your colon."
I'm a colonoscopist. What are you calling? Conologist.
Colonoscopist.
I like that though. Doctor.
I'm a big poop shoot doctor.
Now, if the doctor finds it, did they find the golden ticket as opposed to the person who ate it?
What do you think Wonka would think?
I think Wonka would say the doctor.
Yeah, what would Wonka do?
What would Wonka do? Wonka would respect whoever found it, not ate it.
That's true.
That's some words.
He'd be like, "You didn't even have the decency to look for my golden ticket. You ate nothing. Nothing."
Now, granted, did I make it edible? Yes. But it doesn't mean you need to eat it. I just wanted it to be eatable.
That's my whole thing. Okay, so the next article is a little bit of a turn because I'll be real, there wasn't much Wonka news this week besides the Wonka creamer. But I did learn when you have a Google alert on for Willy Wonka, a lot of people refer to themselves as Willy Wonka in interviews in a way that I didn't expect. So this article is about Jaleel White, the Wonka of Weed. Jaleel White, who played Steve Urkel on Family Matters. And the title was, "How did Jaleel White get into the cannabis market, and how does it make him feel like Willy Wonka?"
So I'm sorry. He's in the cannabis market?
Yeah. So actor Jaleel White, best known as Steve Urkel from Family Matters, partnered up with 710 Labs for a cannabis brand called It's Purple. And appropriately, the line focuses on variations of the weed strain known as Purple Urkel.
Okay, good for him. That's hilarious.
And according to an interview with Forbes, he turned down several ideas that felt very exploitative of the Urkel character legacy. Which I think so like this was not like this, like multiple people had approached him for this, which I think is really funny.
Oh my gosh.
So what's a purple Urkel? It's a strain of cannabis described as having sweet, grapey notes, hence the mention of purple in the name. According to White, it's an old school strain, and it's not an easy plant to grow. And he said it makes sense for him to jump in and set up shop on Purple Urkel due to his playing Steve Urkel. And he's quoted as saying, "The thing that always stood out to me was that there was no clear brand for fire purple weed. It made no sense to me that no company of significance had claimed this lane. So why not me? And you know what? Why not you, Jaleel White?"
Why not?
So now we're on to the Willy Wonka portion. Jaleel White told Forbes he's honed his senses to help him with the craft of creating a perfect purple Urkel. He said, I learned to use my nose in the same way a winemaker relies on his or her sense of taste. And he said the process makes him feel like another famous creative genius. I feel a little bit like Willy Wonka. The flavor came out so similar to grape candy, he said of smoking one of his own creations. So you know what? Good for Jaleel White.
The Willy Wonka of Weed.
I know.
You know what I never mentally considered is that today would Willy Wonka be entering the cannabis, industry, and what would that edible 100%. Room look like at that point?
Oh my god. I mean, I feel like Willy Wonka being zonked out of his mind the whole time would make sense. He'd be like, but I'm not zonked, I'm wonked, and everyone would be like, shut up, please. Oh my gosh. Please just
They would throw him in the chocolate river.
He'd be like, yeah.
That was some good news. Thank you.
Yeah,
I did not expect that at all. So
no, I didn't either. When I opened my daily Wonka Google alert, I was like, okay, not expected, but well cherished. A great piece of information that I've always wanted to know. So yeah. Oh, that was the other thing. One more new segment. We are taking a trip into Felicia's Willy Wonka Dream Palace. I've referenced previously on the podcast that Willy Wonka has been haunting my dreams since we started the podcast.
But have I ever made an appearance? No.
I'm sure you have. It's
bullshit.
Just, it's not as memorable.
I mean, I'm a Gemini and I'm fragile as a person, so thank you for boosting my ego, but I'm not in your dreams and I know it, okay?
You might be.
Actually, you know what? I'm okay with it because you keep referring to them as haunting and like nightmares, so I'm okay if I'm not in your nightmares.
This one wasn't really haunting. It was just an experience I won't forget. So I had a dream where I was auditioning for Wonka. Okay.
Oh my god. Like as Wonka?
Unclear. Don't know.
Okay.
Not sure.
You just want to be in there. Okay.
So it started in a place that was implied to be the basement of Saturday Night Live. And I think like a few of the cast members were there. And Timothée Chalamet was also there. And we were sent to audition upstairs in the NBC studio. Basically, one of the SNL people, maybe it was Bill Hader, was like, you guys need to go. So Timothée Chalamet starts fucking running so fast, and he's the one who knows where to go and I don't. So
to audition,
he was yelling loudly into a microphone as he was going, and I basically had to echolocate through the corporate NPC building following the sound of Timothée Chalamet's yelling to find where we were. And then I found him in the middle of an auditorium playing like a really cheap piano, and I thought that was what we were auditioning with. Like we were like a double Broadway act. I don't know what was going on. Okay. And then later the dream kind of transformed and there were about 3 other people there. And at some points I was auditioning for Wonka's love interest. At other points I was auditioning for Wonka himself. I think I was supposed to be there for the love interest, but had the hubris of saying I'll probably just get Wonka anyway, which is very on brand for Dream Me, who's like wildly confident. And I didn't even end up auditioning. I think I just got stuck in a bathroom for the rest of the dream. So, like, it wasn't that exciting. It wasn't, like, I wish it had a more, like, fun ending. But also, it was one of those dreams where you were about 12 different ages throughout the thing. So, like, at one point, I was implied to be, like, 11. And we were, like, auditioning for Wonka as an 11-year-old. But then I was, like, 27 in the next scene. So I don't really know what was going on there. It was rapidly changing. And a bunch of my friends were auditioning to be elves. Like, not Oompa-Loompas, just, like, straight up Lord of the Rings elves in the same Wonka film. Okay, and they were in, like, the middle of a field. And there was, like, a news correspondent who was like, how's everybody doing? And everybody was wearing, like, multicolored wigs. It was really, I don't know what was happening. And mostly the echolocation following Timothée Chalamet's voice, I feel like represents something about this podcast and the guiding force that Wonka is in my life currently.
I kind of like the idea of Timothée Chalamet sitting down, playing the piano. You're leaning on the piano, and y'all just start doing some kind of like Gene Kelly, Judy Garland duet.
That actually kind of was what was happening.
About to then enter like a tap dance routine.
Oh, actually, I feel like it could work.
If you could put that in your next dream and then maybe cast me in your dream as well, I don't think that'd be too much to ask. I would love to. I'd love to. Fickle Grubber, you know what this little froggy hat.
Yeah, that's your dream role.
It could be something else. It could be like
no, that's your dream role. You told me it was your dream role, and you have to stick with it.
Okay. What Wonka were you like a movie?
It was the prequel. It was the Wonka prequel, solidly. It was the one that was coming out. So I don't know why it was in the SNL basement. I don't know.
In a weird way, Bill Hader was your version of "Good luck, Willy."
Very much, yeah.
Good luck, Felicia.
It might have actually been Kenan Thompson, but I think there were a lot of people there, and I don't know who said it. Was like, you should go after him. But it was weird. Like, we were on a tour of SNL, and Timothée Chalamet was like also on a tour of SNL. He was not a famous actor in the stream. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
And they were just like, y'all want to audition for Wonka? And we were like, I guess. Like, it wasn't like
why not?
planned. So
I didn't plan for it, but I just happen to have a routine at the ready, and I'm wearing my sequin dress and my lucky shoes and a dream in my eye.
And I have a collapsible top hat in my back pocket.
Oh.
That's what I carry with me on the daily.
In your back pocket? How tiny is it?
It's collapsible.
But I mean, it can collapse with the circumference of the hat. Like, does it fold in half then at the same time?
No. It's like, like those, those like big fabric bins that they like twist and put together. And there's like a little Velcro strapped. And then you sit there for 5 minutes, like kind of rapidly, like moving it back and forth. Like, a laundry hamper when it's like a circular hamper that's kind of with wires. And then if you twist it, it'll flatten it down. You kind of fold it in half.
Car visor stuff I have like that. Okay. Yes. I see now.
That's what I was thinking for the top.
Oh, okay. Well, that's stupid. I'm sorry. That came from, I'm just really mad that I'm still not in your dreams, I guess. That came from a place of hurt. I'm sorry. That was uncalled for. I love your collapsible hat. And thank you for being brave enough to share your dream.
I love that on this podcast we argue about an imaginary collapsible hat that doesn't exist and really isn't that interesting to anyone besides the two of us who are weirdly invested in the mechanics. You know what? Actually, everybody weigh in. Would you buy a collapsible top hat? Wonka Watch merch?
No, I
don't know how to make that, and I hate those things.
Immediately vetoing that, because whatever hellscape that would A, be to create, and then B, I don't want a bunch of people with collapsible top hats referring to us and being like, yeah, they did this and we love. No,
the weird
I don't want to be the head of that.
I want a collapsible top hat so I can pull it out just to do a bit, and that's very key about a lot of the problems with me as a person. I think that's my fatal flaw, is that I would carry around a collapsible top hat to do a bit. Like, that's
why just not an actual top hat?
Well, because then it's more collapsible. People don't see it coming.
I don't think people normally see.
Well, yeah, but you don't have a bag that's like, what is that suspiciously top hat shaped object in your bag? Do you know what I mean?
What about a top hat that looks like a purse, but then you take off the chains and you pull down?
That would still look like a top hat. They're expecting the top hat. They see the top hat.
No, if you can have a collapsible top hat, I can have a top hat purse.
Okay.
That you just put on your head. I don't want to fight anymore.
This is bad for us. We can't go to couples therapy and then be like, so what was the instigating argument? And we're like, collapsible top hat.
It's like our relationship. It's so easy to collapse and tuck away and pretend it's not real, and then you pop it out, and it takes so long to set up and maintain. Is it worth it? Should we share our scholarly Wonka knowledge now?
Willy Wonka book report time. I think I'm going to start first because I think I have a few more sections. So
you just want to start first because you know more and you want to make me sound stupid.
It's because my book was 180 pages long.
Mine was
and not for children.
Like size 16 font with illustrations that required eyeball reading. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear from you. I'm excited to hear about you. Sorry, I don't know where bitch Elaine came from today. I had my bitchios this morning with my milk or something. In this cereal bowl. That was weird to say. It's like you take a shot of bitchios and then a shot of milk. I don't even know what. Yeah. Where am I and what is happening? I think I left my body just now.
It's all right. I get it. This book, Pure Imagination, The Making of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, this was at my local library, and I kind of had it tagged for once we watched the 1971 movie. So the book is written by Mel Stuart, who directed the film, and his main thoughts about why the movie's done so well is that it has something for everyone, which is kind of his thesis of the novel. And I will say one thing about Mel Stuart. Man is a good director, not a great writer. It's very ninth grader who discovered thesaurus energy throughout this book. And I just kind of wanted to talk about the way he describes the story. But first, let's talk about the origins of the Willy Wonka film. So the film and the making of it itself began by Stuart's 12-year-old daughter Madeline, who brought him the book in 1969, and she said she'd read it 3 times, and she was like, I want you to make this into a movie and have Uncle Dave sell it. So Uncle Dave, he's this figure throughout the book. Uncle Dave is like this movie producer who his brother or brother-in-law, and he sold a lot of movies and was successful. I kind of skimmed over the Uncle Dave parts.
Is he referred to as Uncle Dave throughout the whole thing?
Not the whole thing, but I called him Uncle Dave because it was more fun.
Oh, okay.
He's our Uncle Dave now. Mel Stuart before this was more of a documentary and realism director. So this was very, very out of this man's comfort zone. But he was fascinated by the bizarre way the moral thesis was set forth, he said, and virtue was rewarded and nastiness was punished. So he set out to set a tone that would make people feel it was realistic and therefore be less of a fable for kids, which would have a more limited audience. Which I wouldn't call that film realistic.
No.
I call that film many things, none of which are realism, you know?
But I do like that he always was like, I don't want this to kind of just be a kid's movie. I just want it to like...
that was kind of his whole point. And he explicitly says that he views Willy Wonka as the main character of the film, which I guess it's interesting. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that's necessarily a correct take, because he doesn't have any markings of a protagonist in any case. Do you know, like, you don't go through the movie and you go, man, I really care about what happens to Wonka. You care about what happens to Charlie. So Charlie is,
well, I hate
fills
Charlie,
the protagonist role.
But
okay, well, that's a you problem. But
I'm angry today.
I went to film school, and if you look at what the character role would fill, he'd be the protagonist, and Willy Wonka would be the mentor and comic relief. Ew. I love Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh my god. Okay, I see now. I mean, yeah, Charlie is the protagonist.
That was called I wanted to explain something, but I got sick of hearing myself explain things. So
I got a little scared. I was like,
yeah.
oh no.
I need to come up with a voice for Mel Stuart, because I wanna go. He spends about a chapter of this book describing the plot of Willy Wonka, which is really funny because everybody who's reading this, if you are reading the book about the making of the movie, you've probably seen the movie.
Yeah.
And the way he writes this is fascinating. I'm trying to think, is Mel Stuart British? I don't believe so. What kind of voice should I give Mel Stuart?
Make him like Sean Connery.
Sean Connery. Is that Sean
Mel
Connery?
Stuart. Yes.
Mel Stuart. He says I think he's from New York, but he's gonna be
Sean Connery, but from New York. Yeah,
in the book, the 4 elderly people have been lying in bed. Who's that? That's nobody. I'm just gonna do generic old man. I'm gonna do generic old man, and we're gonna move on because otherwise I'm not gonna get any words out.
My God.
In the book, the 4 elderly people have been laying in bed side by side for years on end. A rather inconceivable state of affairs. Which, like, I guess, but I don't feel like you need to call that out.
That's like an overly pretentious sentence. Also, I feel like that was just,
strap yourselves in, Elaine. We're just getting started.
That was me putting on my seatbelt.
From the moment Dahl introduces Wonka, you recognize you are in the presence of a quirky personality. His mode of dress, his dancing movements, and his over-the-top exclamations make you quickly realize that this is not a stolid owner of a chocolate factory.
His dancing movements?
Yeah,
isn't that just dancing?
Not a stolid owner of a chocolate factory. It's like he's explaining it to someone who's never read a book or any form of media before, and doesn't have any concept of fun. And he said, it was clear as I read and reread the book, the rooms of the Wonka factory, with a bit of imagination, could be made into unusual sets. Yeah, it took you multiple reads for that? That took multiple reads, Mel Stuart. Like,
again, okay, he comes from the documentary world.
I think that's important. I guess, but still, like, Roald Dahl kind of lays it out straight in there. You don't need to add much imagination.
Like, he actually, like, you, as you're reading it, you see it. So I don't,
yeah.
Maybe when he reads, he only sees like a dark room. And he like only sees like he doesn't actually like have
it's all
imagery.
Surveillance footage. It's all surveillance. It's all surveillance footage and newspaper clippings. That's it. That's all he's got. So he's
and like little confidential files and little telegrams. Like that's all he's seeing when he reads it. So finally,
it's all police reports.
Third time around, there's like this little like candy wrapper, and he's like, "What's that?" And it's like a little rabbit hole. And he enters, and
I've never seen candy like that, and it's still all in black and white. But you know, it's better. It's a very It's like the longest Wizard of Oz possible, except it's in this man's brain and over the course of 25 years.
Yes.
Sorry, Mel Stuart. Anyway, I felt that it wasn't just a children's book, but rather a complex morality tale centered on this fascinating chocolate maker, Willy Wonka. Which I guess, I mean, it's not wrong. It's just like the most boring way I've ever heard anyone talk about Willy Wonka. And the whole book was written like this. So Mel Stuart, good director, not a writer at all. So this book could have gone through a few more edits. He said at the end of the film, Willy Wonka bequeathed the factory to Charlie.
He did not.
He said bequeathed. I can show it to you. Bequeath. He said the word bequeath.
Oh my gosh.
And this these two paragraphs, it's not two paragraphs. This paragraph was life-changing for me. So I'm just going to read this out. Although it may not be immediately obvious, it's also the story of a quest. What makes it so real for today's audience is that the quest is not for hoards of gold or the kiss of a beautiful princess. The quest in this movie is something as mundane, albeit enticing, as a lifetime supply of chocolate. And the evil spirits are the character flaws in the participants themselves. And then he says, the audience can delight in the ingenious ways the bad children are punished for their transgressions in pursuit of the prize. I certainly did. It's like, whoa, hi.
Oh my God, like Hunger Games shit was that near the end.
I know, it just took a turn. It's like, you're very into this. He's very much on Willy Wonka's side. He's like, this man did nothing wrong.
I am shocked that this man is so hardcore dark Wonka, and we didn't get as, like, I wonder if, like, someone at the studio was like, dude, you gotta re-edit those. Like,
I know, but it really makes sense when you read the whole, like, later in the book, he talks about the tunnel sequence, and he's like, people have told me I went too far, and he's like, I did nothing wrong. It's so funny. It's so funny. He's like, this is not on me. Y'all are pussies. Essentially. He's like, kids can handle it, you fucking morons. And he's like, geez, Mel Stuart, okay. And he's like, I cut the head of the chicken off myself, okay, you little bitch. I don't think he did, but it kind of was implied.
And then I took a bite.
So that's kind of the first section of Pure Imagination, the book. And I think it's great for setting the tone of, it really explains a lot about the movie when you read from the director's words. You're like, oh, I see how this became.
Yes. The direction he kind of played with there. Interesting. Well, I have some tidbits about Roald Dahl I could share.
I'd love it.
Yeah. So, mine didn't have big words. But it was good writing.
So no one got bequeathed anything?
Yeah, okay. I feel like Mel Stuart's the kind of guy that thinks if a word has a Q in it, it's instantly fancy.
It's very much, it actually genuinely, and I mean this with no shame to Mel Stuart, it really read like when I go back and read my essays from 7th grade, it very much had that quality where like you look back and you're like, I understand what you're saying, but I don't. I remember there was one essay I opened up about Tom Sawyer that it said, many important moments in literature have taken place in caves. Anyway, it was very 9-year-old writing.
My book was very interesting. I learned a lot. So Roald Dahl was born in Wales, which explains a lot, in September 13th of 1916 to Norwegian.
What do you think it explains?
Wales is like, you know, they're like, we're Wales.
Okay.
Have you watched The Crown? You know nothing.
All right,
I know nothing yet. My next little book I have to read is, what is Wales?
I never knew there was a country named after the ocean animal whales.
I thought they lived on the back of the humpback whale. The book liked to specify that he was born to Norwegian parents. And at first I was like, why is that sentence important? But then they did follow it up later.
Okay,
but like
good.
Awkwardly later, I was like, good for him. But his Norwegian mother read him Norwegian fairy tales that were, quote, filled with monsters, trolls, and other fantastic creatures. So we're kind of seeing how
Norse myths get real dark.
They get real.
There's a show that I watched that was about like a kind of a teenage adaptation of Norse myths. And I think about this all the time. there was a plot in season 2. So spoilers for the TV show Ragnarok, but I think this is the only way to get people interested, and I need a platform to talk about this because I think about it all the time. So I'm using this podcast as my landing spot. There is a character on the show who is this kind of reincarnation of Loki. He's great. Laritz. But there's a plot in season 2 where out of nowhere in the middle of an episode, he gets a really bad tummy ache and they take him to the doctor, and the doctor's like, this is the biggest fucking tapeworm I've ever seen in my life. And the plot is that basically in Norse mythology, like Loki gives birth to a big snake that eats the world. And the way that this show decided to adapt it was that he just had a big fucking tapeworm. And then he poops out the tapeworm. This man is like giving birth. He's like screaming, crying. You know what I mean? He takes it out, and the nurse is like, "It's still alive." And he's like, and then he goes, "Can I keep it?" So then for the rest of the fucking season, he's got this tapeworm in a little cage, and he's feeding it deli ham. And his mom's like, "Can you stop feeding the fucking snake deli ham?" And he's like, "Mom, I just learned out the person who I thought was my dad wasn't my real dad. So I really appreciate if you'd support me and my emotional support snake right now." And then at the end of the season, he releases it into a lake, kisses it on the head, and goes, "Goodbye, my baby." I think about it all the time.
Is this podcast really just more of like, these are the things that are stuck with us forever? We can't get it out.
I think so, because I needed an outlet to talk about
That's
this. Because I think about it.
Why did you do that to us, Felicia?
I will say, watching it play out was one of the most incredible things I've ever witnessed, because you're like, there's a fucking tapeworm plot, and then they just ignore it for like 4 episodes. But yeah, people are taking bets on whether next season he has a kid with a horse, so we'll see. But yeah, Norse myths are dark. That's all I was trying to say.
That, luckily, there was no Wonka wormage that happened. I'm very thankful for that.
It's the Wonka worm. That's what he calls his penis. All right, we're moving on. It was a wide open door. I couldn't not step into it. I fell into the trap door. Broke my leg on the way down.
Yeah, oh my god.
My grandpa listens to this podcast.
Anyway, so that's where, he gets that flavor of like, okay, children's stories that are a little darker. And then in terms of his family life, he had a really big family. But, like every writer, he needs to have some like tragedy because writers can't be happy. So when he was 3 years old, one of his older sisters died. And then a few months later, his father died. So his mother had to raise 6 children on her own. So I think that's also where we get like the Charlie and his mom relationship really going, and all the grandparents. And then we swing into his adolescence and his love of candy. So Roald and his school friends in Wales, which was very specified, they were Welsh friends, would swing by a local candy store to and from school. However, the candy shop owner, Mrs. Pratchett, was evil and mean. And a quote from
is that what they said in the book?
Yeah, they did. And so, and this is based on his autobiography he wrote also. Okay. So first to describe his love of the candy, they quote Roald saying, he said, "We lingered outside its rather small window, gazing in at the big glass jars full of bullseyes and old-fashioned humbugs and strawberry bonbons and glacier mints and acid drops and pear drops and lemon drops and all the rest of them. My own favorites were sherbets, suckers, and licorice laces." And then the book follows this up with, "These were the fantastic names of the types of candy available in Wales in the early 20th century." And I was like, I don't know why that was so weird to me. I was like, the magical land of Wales had candy in the early 20th century.
It very much feels like they're trying to make it be like, did you know that Wales in the early 20th century was just like Willy Wonka? I mean, I get it. Like, they didn't have much exciting going on in the 1920s, so people were just like, what if we called them sherbet suckers?
So back to this evil shop owner, Mrs. Pratchett, who, quote, had a terrible temper and was never nice to children who came into her store. She would say things like, and this is what Roald Dahl, he wrote in the accent. She would say, "I'm watching you to keep your thieving fingers off them chocolates."
I like Mrs. Pratchett.
And then we enter what Roald Dahl called the Great Mouse Plot. So he and his friends are sick of Mrs. Pratchett's bullshit.
Okay.
They're like, fuck all this shit. And so they decide to play a prank on her, and they get this dead mouse, and they're going to put it in a jar of gobstoppers. Like, ha, 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 we got you. So they do it. But Mrs. Pratchett is onto them, and she... So first off, Roald Dahl, he says, I felt like a hero. I was a hero.
Oh my God. Roald, get out.
And this is a man
in the
who
car.
was like in World War II. Like, he fought in World War II, and like this is the most... Anyway,
This was his peak.
They like thought they got away with it, but she goes to the headmaster, and then they all get hit, quote, hard on their rears with a wooden cane. And thus begins Roald Dahl's tragic like experiences with canes.
Okay. There's multiple?
There is multiple. So this is where we enter some of the cane drama, but we can dramatically leave it there, get back to it. So just know canes are coming.
So the Wonka was a reclamation of the cane?
We'll have to speculate, but I have some theories. Yeah.
This is the most fascinating thing I learned from this book, which is about the funding of this movie. Can you guess who on earth funded this movie? I'm going to tell you, you're never going to get it. It's not a movie company, and it is a complete wild card.
I have no idea.
Quaker Oats, baby. We have Willy Wonka thanks to Quaker Oats. I was losing my mind when I read this because I was like, how do I not know about this? Because I've never heard anyone talk about this, but straight from the director himself. Basically, Quaker Oats was making a lot of money at this time, and they asked Uncle Dave, hey, do you have any projects that could help us market a chocolate bar? And he was like, I have just the thing. So the original deal was Quaker Oats was going to fully finance the film, which would then be sold to film distribution companies, which like with Warner Bros. Where it eventually ended up. So they'd be making money from that, and then they would release a chocolate bar upon release of the movie as the Wonka bar. And you may think, how did I not know about this? How did I not know there was a Wonka bar? They didn't make it. They just didn't. Because they couldn't figure out the formula, so they just kind of abandoned it. But they made money off the film initially, but I do think it is insane that the entire movie was funded by Quaker Oats.
Because I don't know of any Wonka products they've sold.
They've never.
To my
That's the thing.
mind.
They've never done it. Because they were going to make a Wonka bar, and they were like, fuck it. We're going to make money off the movie anyway, and we don't feel like doing this. So
it's just like, this is the company that created the best oatmeal, dinosaur oatmeal, which starts as eggs, and you pour in the hot water, and as you stir, it releases sugary dinosaurs from the eggs.
That is a very Wonka thing.
Okay, you're telling me they could do that? They couldn't have, I was going to say, they couldn't have done something similar and been like, here's the Wonka.
But they wanted to recreate the Wonka bar from the movie. And I think they were just like, this just tastes like normal chocolate, and it wasn't going to work. You know what I mean? They were like,
I just feel like they stopped too early. They could have tried harder, and they just went,
I agree. But we have the, it is interesting. Wonka, the Wonka candy brand was around for a while, but they didn't really do chocolate. They did all different flavored candies and things like that. Like Wonka was under, Nerds was under the Wonka name, Sweet Tarts, and some of that other stuff. Like I remember that when I was a kid, they were Wonka. Anyway, moving on to From the Page to the Screen. It's like a commonly known fact that Roald Dahl didn't like this movie. He didn't like how Willy Wonka was centered as the main character, which I find absolutely fascinating because he wrote the screenplay, which is wild. But
they changed a lot of things.
They did, but to be fair, basically Mel Stuart was like, this movie could be great, but we need, as he says, a strong sense of realism to permeate the fantasy. So Dahl's original screenplay was 2.5 hours long and was basically just a rip of his novel, which I think is a feat that he made it that long, considering the book is about 130 pages in like 18-point font. I'm like, how the fuck did you do that? Like, that is a skill to make your own book last that long. And Mel Stuart is quoted saying, in the script, Wonka was still portrayed as a little dancing man with a pointed black beard, not the image you want for a cinematic leading man.
Felicia, it is now time for me to interject here.
Yes, please
because
interject.
In my book,
yes,
we do go through that description. Let me pull it up. Roald Dahl and described Willy Wonka as an extraordinarily little man, like you said. Covering his chin, there was a small, neat, pointed black beard, a goatee, and his eyes. His eyes were most marvelously bright. They seemed to be sparkling and twinkling at you all the time. The whole face, in fact, was alight with fun and laughter. Instead of walking, he did a funny little skipping dance. Willy Wonka was like a squirrel in the quickness of his movements. So Felicia, they drew a little picture based on this
oh my goodness.
Description. So if you please click the link.
I'm nervous. Oh
yeah. It's like if Elf on the Shelf got
hi Lucky Charms. Hello.
I'm horrified by that.
His limbs. His limbs, they all look broken.
I imagine this is like, I'm Willy Wonka hiding in your closet.
It's very
make you into candy.
It's threatening. The proportions on this man are so wrong. They're so wrong. There's so many things wrong about this. I think I could spend 40 minutes critiquing this piece of artwork.
How would you describe this to the listeners?
My God. So basically, he looks to be about 4'3". He has one of those roughly vampire blouses on. You know how those blouses, they only normally do like a little bit at the neck. No, it's full torso. Full torso is like that. He's wearing a little jacket with some lapels. It's got a little cape behind him. His face is the shape of an egg turned on its side. And his eyes are two round circles. But the drawing isn't cartoony. It's almost realistic, which is the worst part. There's a lot of cross-hatching going on. He's got kind of a significant bulge in the pants, which I don't know who okayed on that. And the limbs, basically, they're shaded in a cross-hatched way so that the lighting is implied, which means the mass isn't fully filmed out, which means his arms look misshapen and squiggly and look a little bit like they're a bunch of potatoes in a tube. And he's definitely balding, and his top hat is the size of his torso. And his hands look broken as well. They don't look...
Is that pinky? He's holding a cane. And
his pinky is larger than... almost as thick as his arm, it almost looks.
It's like definitely not connected to his hand, the hand that's holding this cane. It's like the pinky is wrapped around, separately sticking out, which makes no sense. His feet seem way too tiny. Like impossible to like withhold his giant egg head.
There's so many things wrong with this image, and they all make me really uncomfortable. He's very much wearing like Mary Jane's. I think it's fun. Very pronounced ears, and his head almost looks to be sprouting from his body. There's a strainage in the neck going on here that makes me uncomfortable.
Skin vibes.
Yeah. So my new Wonka cast, if we were casting accurate to the description of that description of little man with black hair who runs around doing silly little dances with bright eyes, I would bring Kieran Culkin to the table. That's my thing.
Is he in Succession?
He's one of the Succession guys. He's the short one in Succession.
Shocking.
I know. I like what I like, Elaine. But to be fair, look at a photo of him. He matches the description exactly. If you want a page accurate Wonka, Kieran Culkin, he's about 5'5". He does little dances everywhere. He wears like 8 rings on each hand. And it's like, you just have a confusing energy. You know what I mean?
But anyway, that was, so horrifying. I'm really glad that in the movie they didn't go in that direction.
The main other issue that Mel Stuart has is he just thought that there wasn't enough conflict for a film in the book. Because in the book, Charlie wins the chocolate factory just because he doesn't cause problems. And Mel Stuart was like, well, there's not enough drama. There's nothing for the people to root for or be concerned about, which is kind of fair. It's a fair assumption. And when you go along with traditional movie law, you need to have more conflict than that. So that was his big change. A big section of this book is spent about Oompa-Loompas, which I feel like eventually we're going to have to do a whole thing about the problematic depths of the Oompa-Loompa because, guys, it doesn't stop because all of it's bad. Every interpretation is bad. But originally in the book, the Oompa-Loompas were portrayed as an African tribe, which is obviously bad for a myriad of reasons. So Roald Dahl really missed the mark on that one. And when the movie was coming into fruition, Mel Stuart said that multiple African-American actors came to him and were like, hey, can you not make the Oompa-Loompas an African tribe? Because that's like mega super fucked up, which agreed, So he was like, okay, how about little orange guys with green hair? And they were like, I guess that works. So that's how we got the Oompa-Loompas. It didn't seem, that's about all the depth he went into on it. And the new approach also has a very dehumanizing thing that it does to little people, which isn't great, which a lot of people on our TikTok were commenting about, which we totally agree with. Like, it's super, nothing about the Oompa-Loompas is good, which is why we're a bit devastated by the inclusion of the Oompa-Loompas in the new movie, because we're like, God, this is still existing and happening and we need to think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mel Stuart did also say, with the whole original African tribe approach, he did say, I had to admit that it unintentionally suggested a plantation-like scenario. Yeah, it did.
I had to admit.
You didn't see that?
Unintentionally?
You didn't see that?
Admit?
Like, Roald Dahl, dude is not great. If you look into it, he's like mega anti-Semitic, like super bad. Like, it is concerning. But truly, like, it took that for you to admit that. Anyway, so that's kind of the history of the Oompa Loompas in regards to this movie, and that's how the design that we think of as Oompa Loompas today came to be. And the Roald Dahl people were like, actually, maybe we should switch it to that because that is better. Because the NAACP was like, hey, Roald Dahl, this is mega fucked up, and he was like, oh, my bad. Which I'm like, I feel like somebody should have caught this before it went out.
Must have slipped my mind.
So moving on to something a little bit lighter, they almost called the film The Candyman, but then realized that it sounded like drugs, so that got scrapped.
I would have thought Mel Stuart would have been all about that.
He also talked about a little bit why they decided to call it Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory versus Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and this actually made a lot of sense. One, he viewed Willy Wonka as kind of the driving force in the movie, which is true. You go to the movie for Gene Wilder. You don't go for Peter Ostrom, you know, the kid who played Charlie and then just works as a vet and now in Idaho. So good for him. Though the main reason is he thought people would come out of the theater and say, I saw Willy Wonka. You wouldn't say, I saw Charlie. It doesn't make sense. And that was actually a really good take. Point. I was like, that is a smart marketing move. So, you know, the really goofy, funny sequence about all the people searching for the Wonka bars? That was written by someone entirely different than the rest of the script, which explains a lot.
That does.
They brought in comedy writer Bob Kaufman, who had no involvement with the rest of the script and just wrote a bunch of little bits, which I think is great. They really elevate the movie. Kind of wish he wrote the whole thing because that was the best part by far.
Agreed.
And then there's this whole bit that he talked about. So, you know, in the movie, there's this part where I think it's a guy from Paraguay who's a casino owner fakes winning the last golden ticket, and it's on the air. And that's not in the book. That was something they added just to add more conflict. And Mel Stuart said the picture they used was of Martin Bormann, who was Hitler's ally during his final days, who fled to Paraguay. But then the joke didn't land because nobody knew who Martin Bormann was by picture. And he was like, that one's on me. I just think it's funny that he was like trying to pump the adult jokes in. And it was like, he just misjudged. He was very much into World War II history and was like, oh my God, this one's going to be a knee slapper. And everyone's like, who the fuck is that?
I think, oh, it's just like some guy who works the lot and they took a picture of
him. And like apparently like he put it through previews and it didn't go off and he was like, well, that's okay, you can't win them all.
What a healthy attitude.
So we're going to talk a little bit about casting real quick. So Gene Wilder got the part right after auditioning, and Mel Stuart said he had the sardonic, demonic edge we were looking for. So he really wanted Dark Wonka. Like, Gene Wilder made
What Goes Wonka the Night.
Truly, What Goes Wonka the Night. He was like, I would like to rename the film Wonk Bumps.
No.
Goose Wonks.
You were saying truly atrocious things today, Felicia.
I'm like a little bit hungry, so I'm getting kind of loopy. I was like, this chicken Alfredo lean cuisine will be enough to carry me through the recordings. 'Twas not, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to be eating a
never
big
fully prepare ourselves to do drive recordings.
We don't.
I've had 10 liquids.
I know, I'm drinking tea, which is going to run right through me. But
I've had 2 cups of tea, 3 cups of water.
What kind of tea are you drinking?
I had green tea to start to warm up my vocals, and now I'm having a decaf black tea with dairy milk and some honey made from bees.
Ooh, love it. I have ginger vanilla maple tea.
Shit.
It's from Celestial Seasonings. It's because I can't handle spicy, and including ginger spice, because God, I'm a sensitive individual. And I was like, I need vanilla. That's what's going to get me through. But I can drink it without milk, which is the win. So
I don't know why.
I'm a scientifically sensitive
For some
individual.
reason, imagining that and then going into the creamer taste testing we're going to have to do at some point.
I will say I did take shots of
really
mudslide.
Spicy.
I did take shots of mudslide creamer as a kid as like a special treat. My parents would be like, "You've had a rough month. Do you want a shot of mudslide creamer?" And I was like, "Yes, please." I was like, "Give me that uncut shit,
Oh my gosh,
uncut pure mudslide."
When I didn't pee the bed, I got a frosted animal cracker. I don't have like a.
I for some reason thought you were talking about like modern day. I did not know this bit of Elaine lore.
When I was a very, very young child, to help like potty train me and stuff, I would get a frosted animal cracker every time I didn't like pee the bed. And then as an adult, it was one of those things where, it was one of those things where as a kid, you grow up and you realize, oh, I'm an adult. I could just buy those now. But to me, I was like, these are, I didn't pee myself, special cracker candies. And then now I'm like, oh, I could just buy a fuck ton. And then my friend sent me like 5 giant bags of them because she heard it and she thought it was hilarious. And so I opened this Amazon package and it's an ungodly amount of animal crackers.
Who knew that this would be our longest episode so far? I didn't expect that. I thought this one was going to be like a quick one and done, but apparently we are insatiable in a problem today.
We're going on. I'll continue with our next segment.
Well, hold on. I said one bullet point in my my casting thing.
Sorry.
It's me too. How the fuck did we get talking about animal crackers? We just talked about Gene Wilder having a demonic edge, and then we went to animal crackers. How did we get there? I don't know what happened. Okay, this is a good question. How old did you think the kids were in this movie?
So I'm really bad at guessing children's ages, but I would assume like 10.
13. I didn't think they were 13 either. They looked young. But everybody,
I was like 10 max, and then like
I was thinking like 9, 10. But everybody except for Mike TV was 13, and Mike TV was 11. And he looked like he was 7. So like I don't know, did people in the 70s just like were they not drinking enough milk? I don't know. Okay, so the kid who played Augustus Gloop was actually German, and he really didn't speak much English, which made communication with the crew. And this is Mel Stuart actually kind of scared me after reading this book. I'm going to be perfectly honest. This paragraph was Dark Wonka. So let me read this. Since you didn't have many lines, one of the keys to casting was the image of what Gloop would look like stuck in the suction tube after he falls into the river.
I don't.
There's more. I know. It's so bad. I put my hands on his shoulders and told him to pretend he was stuck in a large tube. And then he said, "Oh my god, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this out." He mumbled something in broken English about not knowing what that would be like. So I squeezed him like a roll of putty. And I said, "You will find out soon." Hey, Mel Stuart, what the fuck? Hey, what? What do you mean?
First off, there's so much. The fact that he uses just the last name Gloop is so unsettling to me. I don't know why, because it's like, again, it's like he's like playing with like battle tactics, and he's like, okay, so the Gloop this is how we're gonna do this. And then he goes with this poor child who doesn't know what's happening because he doesn't speak great English. And Mel Stuart
squeezing you like a tube of putty, and the kid's like, I don't know how to act like I'm in a big tube. What would that feel like? And he goes, "You'll know soon." Like, what?
Couldn't you build a tube around the child? Couldn't you make the tube bigger? What specifically? I need to know what this man, like, little boy looks like in a tube, and I'm gonna be able to, like, he just wanted to see what this child looked like squished. Is that what that was?
Yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, this makes more sense now that we've clarified that Mel Stuart has no imagination and only sees things in like criminal reports. So he was like picturing what's the creepiest way I could do this.
We are back to 0 episodes of me not crying.
I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the way he talks about the Oompa-Loompa casting is predictably not great, let me tell you. And then the one interesting thing was the kid who runs into the class and is like, teacher, Mr. Wonka's selling all the candy bars. He's like, let's school out early. That's his son. That's Mel Stuart's son.
Oh, that's cute.
So that's that segment.
Ooh, I've cried. I left you off with a tantalizing idea of a cane trauma.
Oh,
and how Roald Dahl's cane trauma somehow stems into Wonka. So,
Michael Caine.
Again, so he does the Great Mouse plot. Mrs. Pratchett's like, fuck you. The headmaster goes, whippy, 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 the canes. And Mama Doll is like, fuck you. Don't you ever touch my son again. And then after that, Roald Dahl starts going to boarding school. And he absolutely hates it. They're really mean. And so he goes to a couple. So the second one, the main one he ends up with, he's like 13 years old. Okay, so basically he attends Repton School in Repton, England. So he's in England now, not Wales. And I went to their website, and the school, it's like your classic baby little Hogwarts. They have 10 houses. They have prefects. They wear little robes, and they look smiley. But they, back then though, the teachers and even some of the other students were allowed to beat Roald with wooden canes. So they had canes and they could beat each other. So leaves the one school where he got like beat by a wooden cane by one person, and now he's getting beat by everyone with wooden canes. And I think this says a lot about Dahl, and that he probably has a lot of trauma with canes. And then he goes to make it one of Willy Wonka's like most prominent props. Like when you think of Willy Wonka, I think top hat and cane.
He was trying to associate positive memories.
Yeah. Now I will say, so one positive though about this whole school situation was that it was right next to the Cadbury's chocolate factory. And what the factory did is they sent each boy a box of chocolates. And they'd ask them to review them. And that was their taste test. So these kids would get a free box of chocolates, and they'd be like, what flavors did you like? How'd you feel about it? And then awesome. Cadbury had they knew like, oh, okay, that's what we should do. And
that's what the youths are into these days.
Yeah. And then Roald was like, I always, like, as a kid, I wanted to go into that chocolate factory. I wanted to create my own chocolates and have this idea where I'd go up to Mr. Cadbury himself, and he'd be like, oh, this chocolate is fantastic. It's marvelous. Oh my goodness, little boy. So again, a lot of this like childhood stuff getting really just tossed into Willy Wonka to achieve all his dreams. And then we enter adult Roald Dahl. If you don't do it. This is him becoming a writer. So interesting about the Oompa-Loompas. So he graduates from Repton in 1934 and then goes to explore Africa. My children's book doesn't say more about that, and I'm a little curious what that means. He explores Africa. I don't know. So for the children's version, that's where we're going to leave that. Sorry, I just read my note. Explored Africa after graduating from Repton in 1934 with the perfect amount of trauma to set him up to be a writer. He serves in England's Royal Air Force as a fighter pilot for World War II and worked as a spy. And then you mentioned he's like anti-Semitic. So he meets up with his other anti-Semitic BFF, Walt Disney, in 1942. And they worked together on a movie idea that was going to be called The Gremlins, which to my understanding is not the actual movie Gremlins that we have today. These were separate
I'd love
things.
that, though, if it was.
Wouldn't that be? I didn't double check it, but I'm pretty sure they're separate. But because that movie never happened, but he did end up writing it as his first children's book. So that was his first foray into it. And then I'll just dash in this last little bit and we'll get back to your epic. His love life. So the book says, in 1951, Roald met an American actress, bad news, am I right, named Patricia Neal. Although she didn't like him at first, they eventually fell in love and got married in 1953. Isn't that a good start to a relationship?
Yes.
They did end up divorcing in 1983, and they had 5 kids. But the way that they brought up these 5 kids, let me go into my book here.
Go into your notes. Go into your book.
The couple lived together in a small apartment in New York City and also bought a house in England near Roald's mother. 5 children were born between 1955 and 1965, and Roald became a devoted father. 5 children were born.
No names?
Are they his?
Oh.
Just 5 children were born. Like, are they theirs? Their 5 children were born. You know what I mean? Like, the phrasing is a little odd, and then he became a devoted father between that time span. I don't know. The way they phrased something in this book, I was like, like glossing over something I should know. Because that's the thing about reading children's stuff. You're like, oh, we're going to dabble with that, but we're not going to wholly touch that.
Yeah, that book has a lot of that vibe.
So it made me very curious to know more.
Yes.
And then a lot of his books, they came to fruition because he would read all his kids these little bedtime stories. He'd come up with them. Yeah. And that's how Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James the Giant Peach and all that came to be. So that's my happy little note. And now let's see what depressing and horrifying demonic thing Mel Stuart has to tell us next.
Yeah. So now we're going into the pre-production. This movie was filmed entirely in Germany. which is interesting. So that's a bit of info about where this movie's set.
Interesting.
So the set designer was found in Harper Goff, who was the set designer for Fantastic Voyage, which is a movie about people traveling through the human body. And he was like, this guy's going to kill it. So I got specific details on what the chocolate river was made of, which I found fascinating. So it was 150,000 gallons of water and buckets of the powder used to make chocolate ice cream. That was the original. So there was actually chocolate in it. I thought like, oh, they won't put chocolate in the chocolate river. That seems like a major liability and would cause issues on set. Nope. The problem with it was the smell and the bubbles. Predictably, I feel like I could have figured that out before they put it in. So the chocolate river would go sour and make the whole place stink. Which again, so the effects people used salt conditioner and quote some chemicals, and that fixed it.
That they then threw a child into.
Yes. So the waterfall would make a foam, which would make the water turn white. So the effects manager had to fly to Hamburg to buy a chemical used to control the foaming element in shampoos, and they only needed 2 cups to fix the problem. So it looked good, but it was cold, dirty water. So Augustus Gloop really got the short end of the stick on this film shoot. And the river was about 2 feet deep, and they dug a hole where Augustus dove in. So that area was the only part that was deeper. For the big contract, they used an ordinary contract and then set to make a mockery of it. And they said they turned the legal language into Wonka-ese. The text was handwritten by the effect manager's wife, who was real good at calligraphy, which I thought was cool. That was handwritten.
It was a good job.
Really neat.
Nice.
Yeah, she did great. So you know the Wonka-mobile, where they go through the car wash in the Wonka-mobile? The white foam that covered everybody was fire extinguisher fluid, and it gave everyone a huge rash. Which is a big problem.
Oh my god, that was like the best option?
Yeah, I feel like they could have... I mean, I guess it was the 70s, and you really feel it when you read this book. You're like, oh, it was the 70s. Holy shit. But like, there were children on set. So I remember last episode we were speculating about the logic behind Wonka's half office, and Mel Stuart said, I don't want this movie to end in a boring office. So he was like, fuck it, cut it in half. That's about it. There wasn't much logic behind it. He was just like, I'm going to cut it in half. And the prop guy prepping for it started to cut a full coffee pot in half, which was not for the scene, and just a normal coffee pot for the crew, which I got a lot of joy out of.
That's hilarious.
He was just like, it's going under the straw. Mel Stuart talked a little bit about the music, and he does not like the song Cheer Up Charlie, and he cuts it for time on TV, which I think is a good choice.
Yes, good.
Uncle Dave is the one who came up with the idea for the animated lyrics, and the songwriter and the director both hated it, but were like, we got to pick our battles. So the karaoke bit was not part of the grand vision, but he was like, I'm fucking throwing in the towel, do your dumb little typography. And then Stuart is the one who wrote the flute melody that summons the Oompa-Loompas, because he was like, I take myself to be a little bit of a musician, so I wanted to write the flute melody. Mel Stuart seems like an interesting man.
I think I would hate him.
I think so too. But let's talk about shooting the movie. Shooting the film itself. So Gene Wilder worked for a whole week with 2 German stuntmen to perfect his entrance, which I think is great. On the Wonkatania, there's actually only 8 seats. There's not room for Augustus Gloop and his mother, which I totally missed on the watch, which confirms our theory that Wonka planned everything from the beginning. And the Wonka-mobile also only has enough seats for Mike TV's family and Charlie, who are the only people there at the time. And somebody questions the director on it, and he said, I have no coherent answer. So he didn't think about it. He was just like, why would I add extra seats? Like, it wasn't that planned out, but it accidentally paints a picture.
That's sort of the fun. I will say, like, just in general with like art, when people read into it deeper and they actually find cool meaning that the artist had no intention of creating, they just were like, oh, I didn't think about it, but then it does suggest something else that's like cool to think about, like those accidental like stuff.
But it is funny that he was like, no comment.
No comment, even though now I secretly love a dance to my Doc Wonka.
So the girl who played Violet Beauregard genuinely thought that Gene Wilder had gone insane during the riverboat scene when they were filming, which I think is great.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, and Mel Stuart personally shot the chicken axe footage. He doesn't think the imagery was too extreme. He thinks that Gene Wilder is the scariest part, and that it certainly solidified the image we wanted to project of Wonka. He wanted Wonka to be scary. Like, that was part of his goal. They used Gene Wilder's hair as a gauge for Wonka's slow unraveling, which I thought was really interesting.
Oh.
It's actually, I'm like, that's a good piece of filmmaking there, my man. The actor who played Veruca didn't like chocolate, so she had a hard time with the chocolate pumpkin, which confirms the argument we had last episode about whether it was strawberry jam or chocolate. It was chocolate.
Fine. You can have that.
So the actor who played Mike TV's mom and the kid who played Mike TV bonded throughout the film, and she would call him her little mouse in German, and she gave him a mouse as a gift at the end of shooting, which is wild.
That's one of those gifts if someone gave it to me. I'm like, oh, the thought is really kind. Thank you. I don't want a fucking mouse.
Mel was kind of roasting these kids in the book, and he was talking about how the kids had long days and things like that. And of the kid who played Mike TV, he said, the fact was, like Mike TV, he seemed to like him hear himself talk, so I don't think he minded. Mel Stuart, he is 11. He's 11 years old. Every 11-year-old likes to hear themselves talk.
Yes.
It's like the main feature of 11-year-olds. So the hairdressers would burn off Veruca Salt's split ends every day, which is why her hair gets progressively shorter throughout the film, which is really funny. Like, it just got like 2 inches shorter.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, do y'all not have scissors? What are y'all doing?
Wait. So why did they do that?
I don't know. He just said they burned off her split ends every day.
What does that mean? Hold on. No. I need to understand. So they're doing her hair and they're just purposely burning off her hair a little bit.
Well, yeah, they were trying to get rid of the split ends via fire.
But how
I guess that was
I mean, every day now? How obvious is that gonna what? I'm so confused by that.
I don't understand it either. Mel Stuart doesn't explain anything. He just says shit.
He's like,
you have to deal with it.
Stuff. I don't understand.
Yeah. Okay, so here's one of the most horrifying parts of the shoot. When we shot the scene where Violet is rolled out of the inventing room, she had to stay on set during lunch because it would take too long to get her out of it, and she was fed via straw by a PA, and then they rolled her a quarter turn every 15 minutes to keep the blood flowing. Hey, Mel Stuart. That's a child. She's 13. Can we get her out of the blueberry? Can we get her out of the blueberry for lunch? And then the Oompa-Loompas couldn't direct the ball properly, so she was rolled into the metal door frame multiple times, bruising her. Hey, Mel Stuart, do you want to talk about, are you sure you want to write about that in your book? It doesn't make you sound great.
There wasn't a single, like, any other option. That was Mel Stuart. That was it.
He was just like, she'll deal. She's tough. The kid who played Charlie Bucket was kind of flirting with both Veruca and Violet, and he asked the girl who played Veruca to be his date to Oktoberfest because they were in Germany, but she had to get her permission from her mom, who was back in England, and her mom took too long to respond, so then he asked out the girl who played Violet. A player.
Wow, that's hilarious to me.
Apparently the actors who played the Oompa-Loompas were party animals and would go bar hopping every night, and one of them owned a limousine, which I think is just a fun fact.
Wait. I imagine it like they haven't bothered to take off the stage makeup. They don't care. You're just casually in the bar, and here comes the Oompa-Loompas.
Oompa-Loompa party bus.
Yo, shots on shots.
Yeah. So the movie originally, you know how abruptly the movie ends? It was gonna be even worse because the movie was just gonna end with Grandpa Joe going, yippee! So fucking bad. And they were at, like, on the last day of shooting, he called up a writer and he was like, dude, the end of this movie is so fucking bad. Can you please write me an ending? So that's how we got the don't forget what happened to the man who got everything he ever wanted. He was happy. Is that the line? I don't remember what the line is. And I did learn, we were curious about the chocolate opening credits. They were from various chocolate makers in Orange County and not Hershey. So our theory has been disproven, which is a shame.
Alas. Okay, so back to my what is the story of Willy Wonka? We finally enter Wonka. I wonder if this couldn't have just been called What is the Story of Roald Dahl?
Yeah.
And I feel like if I was Roald Dahl, I'd be kind of pissed. I'd be like, you just talked about me, but I guess people wouldn't give a shit about me, so we had to talk about Willy Wonka. It's kind of a vibe I'm getting, because this is like half of the book is just like explaining Roald Dahl, which fine, but This is when they start to give a whole synopsis basically of the book, which one thing I noticed is that the factory's closed for 10 years in that version as opposed to 3 years. And that is a lot of time. That is a huge time difference, which I thought was interesting. There actually was a whole page called A Geographical Mystery. Where is Wonka located? And Roald Dahl specifically didn't want anyone to think it was a certain country. He wanted it to be this mystery. You didn't know where like it was. So kind of the idea that you could imagine it next door to you, wherever it was.
Yeah.
But in the book, he finds $1, not a 50-cent coin piece. And then that meant it could be in the United States or Felicia, Australia. Ooh. And I just would like to say we have missed out on an Australian Wonka.
I would love Australian
I
Wonka.
would love an Aussie Wonka. To me, that, whoa. And then, so Roald Dahl, he starts writing screenplays. He wrote You Only Live Twice, the 1967 Bond movie adaptation.
Yes,
and then he
that was in my book too.
Ooh! And then he wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And I have some thoughts about this.
I know. It made so much sense when I learned he wrote that.
Yes, because is this about the child catcher character?
Yeah, I haven't seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in years.
Same.
I liked it though, but I think that's just because I weirdly liked Dick Van Dyke a lot as a kid. I don't
think that's weird. I think that's normally okay as a child because he was in Mary Poppins and stuff, and he's like all silly and ghosties. Yeah. But for me, so from what I learned from my scholarly book, so that movie, it's based on a book, and in that book, this character does not exist. Roald Dahl goes, no. This is the villain of the movie. Okay. And it's called The Child Catcher.
Yes, I do remember that.
Who has, quote, a long and very sensitive nose, which he used to sniff and locate children in their hiding places. The child catcher used candy to attract the attention of children and then capture them in almost every way. The book then says, in almost every way, the child catcher was the opposite of Willy Wonka. But is he though?
I think he's Wonka's shadow Wonka. He's the Shadow the Hedgehog. He's the Wario.
He's Darkling.
Yeah, Darkling, Wario.
I was just like, I don't like that. I think there's something going on here, Roald Dahl, and it's okay. So we finally hit the 1971 movie, which we know Roald Dahl didn't really like the changes, and he specifically then turned down the opportunity to make a sequel. For the Charlie and his glass elevator yeehaw.
Yeah. I think that was honestly for the best because from what I know about that book, I feel like it would have ruined the first movie's legacy.
So it's all about going to space, which when it was written, this is when the space race was happening. Yeah. So it was pretty timely, but it was genuinely stupid.
There's one part where they just visit the president of the United States.
Yes, which was going to be the third book. He started writing a third book, got a chapter in, and then he died. But that third book is basically him like going to the president, and then they're all like, "Oh, the president stuff." So it was like the idea was like there might be something in America.
That would have killed the vibe.
It really, I mean, the second book kind of killed the vibe anyway because they like go out to space, they find a spaceship, and then like the president's mad because like he was supposed to be there first or something, and then there's these
I'm very
evil
excited for
aliens
episodes on Charlie and the Glass Elevator.
Yeah, it's
gonna be fun.
Bananas. And so the book ends going through the recent adaptations of Wonka. Yeah. So they're like Johnny Wonka, the musical. There was a theme park, Netflix getting the rights. They're up to that point. So this was Wonka Prequel wasn't up there, but yeah, they're like Netflix just got the rights to it.
When was this book published?
2021.
Holy cow.
Damn, this is fresh.
This is fresh. Hot off the presses, ladies and gentlemen. We got breaking Wonka.
Ooh.
Wonka, it's not new news, but it's a breaking book. It's hot in our hands. Playing hot potato.
Anyway, so this book ends with the creepiest quote, kind of about how like the Wonka brand is ever growing, the story is ever present, the empire of Wonka
that
will
was
always
kind of the way this
here.
Book ended too.
Right, so the quote goes, as Roald Dahl wrote in the very last sentence of Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, "It's not over yet," Charlie said, laughing. "It hasn't even begun."
Do you think when he was writing that, he was talking about our podcast?
He had a premonition.
He's going to be like, there's
to the future.
There's going to be two girls talking shit about me in their bedrooms, starving after only drinking tea for a full day.
And they always had to pee, but never
They
got
always have
frosted
to pee. The
animal
whole
crackers
podcast,
for
they
it.
always have to pee. And they talked about tapeworms, which I don't know how that has to do with me. That is the thing, is we make fun of the ever-growing Wonka legacy, but the problem is we are contributing.
We have done it.
We're
We've
part of
done
the
it.
problem. Yeah, my book actually talks about the legend of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So Mel Stuart kind of basically took this chapter as a way to pat himself on the back for one iconic movie he made. And was like, here's all the things that reference my movie. So the Simpsons comic did a Willy Wonka parody called Bart Simpson and the Krusty Brand Fun Factory, which I could not find access to. So if anybody has a copy, they'd like to email us, reach out at wonkarapture@gmail.com. Also, really quick, wanted to thank everybody who gave us info and intel. We got a lot of stuff about the musical, and we really appreciate everybody's emails. We will be covering the musical eventually, but there's so much to get into that it's probably going to be a little bit. But trust us, it's on the radar. It's on the radar. But yes, there's the rock band Veruca Salt, which is a thing which I'd heard of, but I kind of forgot it existed.
Same.
The band Vermicious K, which I've never heard of. Apparently the lead singer goes by the name Mike TV. And then Marilyn Manson is obsessed with this movie, apparently, which I never knew. And to the point where like he uses the font on his album covers, and he made a tribute video and a replica Wonka boat. He replicated the Wonkatania. Like, he's like hardcore fan.
Oh, wow.
Marilyn Manson really wanted to play Willy Wonka in the 2005 movie and campaigned for it. And he said, I see Willy Wonka as Satan because he presents people with the temptation of picking good and evil, and they all pick evil.
Okay, is he wrong though?
I mean,
he's not wrong, but he is wrong.
We can't agree with Marilyn Manson on this podcast.
This is the man who, on stage, would get a bat and rip off its head with his teeth.
He did that?
Yeah, this is Kiss, right? He's in Kiss?
No.
Oh.
I didn't know Kiss did that either. Marilyn Manson is not in Kiss.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, like, I understand the confusion.
Oh my god.
Okay, so the last chapter of the book is kind of a wrap up on the film and where they are now about the actors, which is really interesting. So actually, Wonka is a literature snob, and he quotes throughout the film Oscar Wilde, Shakespeare, Keats, and more. So, like, the quote, "The suspense is terrible. I hope it lasts," is actually from The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, which is a great play.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. So Wonka's very well read, has a great library. The kid who played Charlie, Peter Ostrom, has not been in anything other than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now he's a vet in upstate New York and just talks to kids in schools about being in the movie, which is very wholesome and cute.
That's so cute.
Denise Nickerson, who played Violet, was a private duty nurse and later an accountant, and now she's a stay-at-home mom. Paris Themin, Mike TV, had an insane life. So I'm just going to go through these real fast. He acted until he was 14, and then after college, he traveled the world, visiting 30 countries. Then he sold real estate, and then he worked for Disney World, making theme park rides. He was in The Big Lebowski and a contestant on several game shows, and he is now an accountant. He lived 8 lives in his life. I was like,
oh my
what?
god, I like that he ends on accountant.
Yeah, it's like you went through all that, and he's like, I'm so fucking tired.
He's like, let me like sit in the quiet. And
Michael Bollner, who played Augustus Gloop, is a tax accountant in Germany. And Julie Cole was really the only one who continued acting. She got a role on EastEnders and had a successful voiceover career, and now has kind of retired from that and works as a fitness instructor. And Rusty Goff, who played the lead Oompa-Loompa, who is like the one that you think of when you think of the Oompa-Loompas from this movie. He's like in it the most and sings most of the songs, runs a small theater school, and was actually in the Harry Potter series as one of the Gringotts goblins. So I thought that was interesting. Good for Rusty. Getting those jobs. And that's kind of where the book ends. He's just like, and that's my movie. Goodbye. So
I did it.
Wonka's for everybody is what Mel Stuart says, and Mel Stuart scares me. It's kind of my takeaways from the book. Elaine, do you have any predictions that you've come up with from the book? I'm gonna say I came up with one while listening to you talk about it. Maybe they're gonna take a little bit of Mrs. Pratchett influence and kind of incorporate that character into young Wonka's life, which I think would be really interesting. Like, maybe they'll try and tie in details from Roald Dahl's life into the Willy Wonka character. I feel like they do that sometimes because it's kind of clearly You know, like how the Avengers movies are like a male power fantasy. This is Roald Dahl's male power fantasy.
Yes.
This is his power fantasy. And I think it'd be interesting if they I could see them doing that. Maybe Olivia Colman is Mrs. Pratchett. And Willy Wonka's gonna hide a little mouse. I kind of like that idea.
I know that.
Willy Wonka's mouse plot. That'd be fun. And he's like, I hate mice, and that's like part of his. I don't know. Okay,
but that's his like.
Do you have any predictions? I didn't. Do you have a prediction?
My prediction, kind of playing off of his life again. Mm-hmm. I think that as Willy Wonka is creating his chocolates, he has these like kids that look up to him, and they're his friends, and so he'll give them chocolates. And so we're gonna one of the opening credits, like opening scenes to this movie, is all these kids going up, and he's going, "Hello there, little Billy. Did you like the creme de l'umptious?" And he goes, "It was pretty good, but it made my teeth spectacular." And then another kid comes up and he's like, "I tried your strawberry boop boops and I loved them, but my whole face turned pink." And Willie goes, "Oh man, I need to work on that. Thanks there, kids." And like, it's just him casually walking back to his home, you know, like I think that's
I would love
energy.
that. That actually sounds really cute. I kind of really want that. But the thing is I would love is he really can't figure it out. He's like, why don't I just market it like that? I was trying to make normal candy, but then I went to a lecture by a business executive who told me I need a USP, a unique selling point. And I thought mine could be is that it turns your face pink. And his mom's like, okay, where'd you get the accent from? That's not, where are you from?
What happened to my young little Willy Wonka?
I went to a Gary Vee lecture and he told me. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Wonka Watch. Especially if you're a new listener, we really appreciate you getting on here. And actually, like, we have people listening to us now. It's crazy. It's wild. So if you have any questions or concerns, please give us an email at wonkarapture@gmail.com.
I feel like I'm on like a Lulu Rowe Facebook Live.
I'm trying to get you in on the pyramid scheme.
But yes, we'd love to hear from you. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter at Wonka Watch. Yes. Felicia creates these amazing TikToks. You can see all the visuals of things we're talking about when we describe certain pictures and things. We've got it all for you right there.
That's where you find it.
Exactly. And
Elaine, do you want to shout out your other podcast? Because you never do it on the podcast. No, we actually have listeners. You probably should.
Gosh, it's so exciting. So I have two other podcasts. Angus IT, that's Angus like the cow, I like the body part, and T like the drink. And it is the podcast all about anxiety, depression, and other cheerful topics. It is my mental health comedy show. I talk about my mental health and just through the lens of humor. And, you know, like shit is shitty, but let's giggle about it. My other podcast is Sloshbucklers. It is the uncanny podcast that reviews canned booze. And so I review canned alcohols, and season 1 is all about hard seltzer. I have a guest on with me and we do drinking games. There's segments. It's a ton of fun. So those are my other podcasts. It's
very fun. But yeah, that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks everybody for listening. And remember, it's not that important.
It's not that important.
It's really not that important.
Goodbye.